Welcome back. I've got Paul Nadeau on the line. How are you doing, Paul?
I am doing great, Michael. Just living life and taking it one step at a time.
That's the best way to do it, and our colleague and friend King teaches us that way. So shout out to King. Hello, King, because I have a funny feeling he might listen to this one. I think he
There
listens
you
to
go.
other ones too when he's completely bored off his ass, but when he's traveling the world and all that stuff. But no, I'm really, really thankful that we finally got to connect. So for those that don't know who you are, why don't you share a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this very important conversation.
Before I do, I'm going to shout out to King as well because you're right. He's going to be listening to this. And I appreciate the fact that you and I have finally gotten together. We were talking just before the show how many years it's been that this has been, I guess, leading to this moment. And it's been a few, and thanks to King. Um, Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Nadeau, and I'm a former hostage negotiator. I was an international peacekeeper and a detective for 32 years. I spent 20 of those years working in major crimes. I was deployed to the Middle East during the Iraq War. I have been a student of human behavior and also, since leaving the police department, I've become a keynote speaker and an author of several books. And very much like Michael, I believe in just keeping things going and moving forward and being as creative as we possibly can be.
It makes life go by even faster than it normally does. The time of this recording, we're at the end of October 2025, and I'm trying to figure out where June went. And it's like, okay, well, where'd summer go? And we go outside, we know summer's not here. It definitely left the building. But and one of the reasons, well, many reasons why I want to talk to you is because your career has been so intriguing and impactful, and you've seen all kinds of different things, including war-torn areas and all of that, and organizations bring you in hostage negotiations. Talk about something delicate. That is, you have people that are being detained, and you have to negotiate for them to get out, and that's a lot harder than a lot of people think. But you have to understand the human psyche a little bit. And what got you interested in this line of work in the first place? Because I don't remember when I was in school it having it list as potential careers that you could pursue. So I maybe it did here. I don't know. I went to school in a different part of the world, so definitely wasn't on my list. Mine was accounting or mortician, and I chose accounting because I was horrible at science, excuse me. And he's so bad that I called it sinus instead of science. Uh, and a shout out to Mr. Dan Burrell, who was my grade 9 or ninth grade, depending on what part of the world you're in, science teacher. And I'm for a fact know that the only reason I passed that class is he did not want to see me ever again, so he passed me. But I certainly didn't deserve it. But anyway, what got you interested in this line of work?
What you just said, I have some experience with that as well. I, my father was a very abusive man, like an extremely abusive man. Some of the things that he did to us and to me were just horrific. And I remember at the age of 7, after a beating, I was lying on the ground, bruised and broken, and just looking up at him and saying to myself, "When I grow up, I'm going to be a policeman, so I can arrest you." And he killed Santa Claus when I was 8 years old, right before Christmas. He killed Santa Claus with his 22 rifle. And years later, he took the same rifle and killed himself. I had made a promise to myself that I was going to be a policeman. And that had been in my blood ever since that moment that I was 7 years old on the ground. So at the age of 21, I joined the police department. Before I joined the police department, my father had done something. He had forced me to go out and start working at the age of 13, 14, so I could pay room and board. But in that, he was also teaching me how to communicate with adults. I had to lie about my age, but he was teaching me negotiation skills unknowingly. And I developed an ability to read people and to communicate and to fit well. I got several jobs. I bought my first car at the age of 16. At the age of 18, after my father had killed himself, I joined a suicide hotline at our hospital in Oshawa, Ontario. I don't know why they selected me, probably because of my age, but I also knew how to communicate very well. So I was listening to suicidal people for hours and hours after being trained for months. And this was all in working towards a police career. When I joined the police, at one stage, I was able to communicate with anybody. I was able, in the detective office, I was able to get confessions. I worked in the sexual assault and child abuse unit. I was able to get victims to open up. When it came to criminals, they felt like they were going to the confessional because they would confess to me. When I was in patrol as a patrol sergeant, I got a 911 call one night, and I was the first responder. I was the first one to arrive, and the door to the house was open. And that should really concern someone. It's a 911 call. You have no idea what you're getting into. Uh, Unknown trouble, no more information. The door's open. You're either walking into an ambush or you're walking into something that's not going to smell very pretty. And I heard a voice from inside the house calling me, which made me even more nervous. Like, here's this voice calling me into the house. Come on in, officer. Come on in. And again, I'm imagining the worst. And had my hand on my holster, and I started walking towards the voice. And at the bottom of the stairs, I looked up and I could see this chair, a flimsy metal chair, missing the seat, and a guy standing at the top of the stair, sorry, of the chair. And when I looked even further, he had a noose around his neck. He had a bottle of Jack Daniels in one hand and a box cutter in the other. And he was sloshed. He was moving back and forth. And he told me, he says, Officer, I wanted you here so you could witness my death and tell my effing wife how I went out. And at that moment, I wasn't a hostage negotiator. I'd never negotiated for a life before. And I didn't put the pieces together until later on, but I started to talk to him as though I was talking to somebody on the suicide line. And of course, backup was starting to arrive, the ambulance and other officers, but everybody let us alone. And about 30 minutes later, I talked that man off that chair. And I realized you've got something here. So let's fast forward a few years. I was in the sexual assault and child abuse unit working as a detective. And over the computer comes this message. They're looking for a hostage negotiator. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, what a cool job. Like, I think I can do that. I've already talked one guy in crisis. I think I'll apply for this. When I applied, my boss said, oh my gosh, yes, Paul, you're the perfect candidate. So I went to the RCMP, who have to make the final decision, and I passed a series of tests that they have, and that's how I ended up there. I think the world sometimes conspires for you, Michael. Um, the events that happened to me when I was younger also happened for me. I wouldn't have become the man that I am today had it not been for the abuse I suffered at my father's hands. And there are many of those stories. But here's where listeners should really consider things that may have happened to them that actually happened for them, and maybe let go of the pain, the trauma that it causes them today, and just say, I'm the person I am today, or I was taught this valuable lesson. That's my thought.
Thank you for walking us through that journey. And the first thing that jumped out at me, and a lot did, of course, but the first thing that jumped out is when you're working with someone that is literally on a chair, getting ready to end their life, and you create this environment where they feel safe to say to you or share with you what they're feeling. You've created this, I don't call it a bubble, but basically this protective surrounding that isn't incarceration, but it's this, you are safe here. You can be who you truly feel you are right now. and let's have a conversation. And when you mentioned when the ambulance and on the backup and everything else was showing up, the fact that those individuals stayed back to allow you to maintain that safe place for that individual saved that individual's life because you know that sometimes in a situation it's like, okay, we gotta, there's someone there, they storm in because they're trained, we have to rescue somebody, we have to do this, and the rescuing was letting this person talk things through and listening to them and having them feel acknowledged, that they belong. There's so many different things, and I think that we talked a little bit about this in the pre-show, but in your book in particular, it really highlights this, where I think so many people right now in every walk of life don't feel A, that they belong, or B, that they have this safe, protective place for them to be who they are. And we see it on social media. We see it in workplaces. We see it in family dynamics. We see it pretty much everywhere. And you just go, okay, what can we do? So, let's talk about your latest book and flush this out a little bit as far as how people feel hostage of their own life.
For sure. I first want to acknowledge what you just said. You have hit the nail on the head on so many levels. Uh, People are feeling a loss of control, and we must all feel that we're in control of our lives and that there's hope at the end of this tunnel, this dark tunnel that many of us are experiencing at the moment. The way in which hostage negotiators approach a situation and the way that I did that day, and it became a pattern for me and for many hostage negotiators, you show up, your hands, I'm here to help. Those words, I'm here to help. How can I help you? And just conveying it with open body language, a soft voice, like a DJ's voice, like you have a DJ's voice, and just making people feel as comfortable and as open as possible. They have to feel that they're not being judged and that you are truly there to listen to them. My latest book, The Hostage Effect is a conditioning. I think a huge part of the world is suffering from the hostage effect right now. What is the hostage effect? It is it's like a psychological virus. We know what COVID is. COVID attacks the body, makes you feel physically ill. And there's a lot of uncertainty, fear, and consequence in catching the virus, whether it be the flu, COVID, whatever. You know that if you catch the virus, it's going to be bad, number one. It could be extremely bad, number two. The hostage effect is what's happening now with all the wars in the world that are going on, with governments that are starting to erode our democracies and announce things daily that threaten the very lives of the people that they should be serving, makes us feel anxious and scared. And this is where the psychological, it takes us hostage without the use of bars or cells or closed doors or chains. We're feeling like hostages. What's next? Just these past few days, Michael, and I know that you're keeping up with the politics, there have been some announcements that have been extremely concerning. Our government has tried to pass through bills that would take away our privacy, our right to express ourselves, that would give them sweeping ability to check your mail without a warrant or to arrest you in the middle of the night, like the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who is really taking his country hostage. And this results in our anxiety and our fear. What my book does, it spells it out. It also has several stories in it in which real hostages tell us through. And when I read those stories, and I've spoken to many, I see how that applied applies to me and to so many people I've spoken to. When I was in the Middle East, I saw an entire country being held hostage through fear and uncertainty and manipulation. So it took an entire country hostage. And when people are afraid to express themselves, to to open up and to live a happy life thinking, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose my job tomorrow? Is the government going to come into my house? Is this, am I at war? Is this going to result in an act of war? We feel this anxiety. So I tell people, I say, yeah, I know what you're feeling. You're experiencing the hostage effect. And my book is more than that. It brings you awareness. Okay, be aware of what's happening. Number two, it's time to take control of your mental wellness and to take certain steps. So my book is also it's a guide to help people retain their autonomy, their agency, their mental wellness, and to really take affirmative action to stop some of this craziness that's going on with our government. Together, we can make a big difference. So that's what it's about.
It's again, like you said, very, very timely, and we're being gaslit on a minute by minute basis by a variety of stakeholders, whether it's our government, the media, you name it. And you know this, and I know this. You've traveled the world, you've seen people from all walks of life, and I have too. And my takeaway, and of course, where we live, in the Greater Toronto area, we know, that there are a bazillion cultures here for people from all over
Mhm.
the world. When I worked in the last healthcare organization I worked at, we had 16 different countries represented on my team, and made the mistake of having a potluck lunch one day, and everybody brought something, which was absolutely horrible. And I'm not saying it tasted bad. It was like my stomach could not try everything. I was so mad. I'm like, I want to try all of it, but if I eat another thing, it's not going to be good. So it was
Yeah.
like we gotta segment this up a little bit and maybe pick, three at a time or something, because it was just way too much. But I tell you what, that was probably one of the best days of eating in my life, because it's just you get experience to different things, and you get to understand, people. It's like, oh, why, how do you pair it with this? It's like, I've never seen this paired before, but how does it taste so good? Just, well, the ingredients, when you put them together, make something pretty magical. And I think that's what this world is all about. And politics and government leaders that have too much ego and not enough brain, just do things that are not beneficial to anybody. And yeah, I am one, when they talk about borders, it's like, I wish they were never created. I wish everything was free flowing and
Yeah.
allowed people to be. You know why? Because there's more than enough for all of us. And when we collectively work together and just strive to be the best people we can be and enjoy our lives and do the things we enjoy doing, we're no longer hostage to things. But it's not hard to find anything that's negative and controlling. And I do my best. I don't, stick my head in the sand, or anything else to avoid it. I know what's going on. I see it. But for me, I have to frame it, from my perspective, is like, okay, what can I control in this situation? I can control my mindset. I can control, my reaction as best as could be. Does that mean I don't get upset? Of course not. I'm human. I'm going to be upset
Yeah.
at tragedies and travesties, and people, losing the rights to express themselves. Even, I understand, you don't want to be hateful, but you should express your opinions and what you feel about things. But what it does is it suppresses, open dialogue. So basically, what it makes, just thinking about it, is it makes hostage negotiation damn near impossible, because it'd be the equivalent of going, okay, I'm going to go in and try to save this person. And they say, oh, no, we don't allow that type of speak here. You have to follow these guidelines. And we looked at that citizen, and we see, what they contribute to society, and we don't want you to spend the time on it. It's like, what? It defies logic. But where is logic these days? It's being held hostage.
It is being held hostage, yes, you spoke about focusing on the things that we can control. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, a wonderful book. He said, yeah, he says everything can be taken away from us, but one thing, our power to choose our responses to the situations that we're in. What we need to do is be very firm in our approach to what the government is trying to do in both countries. Because if we remain silent, what will end up happening is that we will be taken hostage and our rights will be stripped away from us. And eventually, that conditioning will result in the story that I tell in the book about the two boys in the basement. You remember that book? Sorry, that story? And that was psychological conditioning to the umpteenth degree, where these boys who were locked in a basement, locked in cages, had no idea that that was wrong because that's the only life that they knew. And governments can do that. We're seeing it in China. We're seeing it in North Korea. Imagine North Korea. I use that as an example in my book as being the extreme result of the hostage effect, where they know nothing more than to bow down to a leader who is cruel. And we've all got to band together. And I like what you said about collectively. I wish there weren't a need for borders. What I take objection to is I'd love to have people come in within a certain amount because we have to be careful how many people come in to be able to provide for them or to at least get them started on their own, but also under the caveat that in Canada here or wherever you go, Japan is experiencing this right now, that you abide by the rules of the country, that you respect the country that you're in. When I was in the Middle East, I never imagined doing something that would go against their traditions or to express myself in such a way that I would cause alarm because I know what would have likely happened and I would be disrespectful. It's like if I went into your home, Michael, and you invited me into your home and I went, well, thank you, Michael, for giving me a place to stay. This is great. And you're feeding me and everything. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm playing the drums and I'm just starting to put out my, what I want here and what I want there. You as the homeowner would probably say, Paul, no, that's not how the rules go. I've got kids here, I've got family, and I just can't, put up with this. And this is where we have to really count on good people doing the right thing. And just being aware that I wish we could all get along. Two of the greatest lessons, and I don't want to take up any more of your time, but two of the greatest lessons that I ever learned, I'd like to share with your audience, if I may. You're all right with that?
Of course.
When I first started on the police department, with the background that I had and knowing how to talk with people and how they respond, I realized, number one, we are more similar than we are different. It doesn't matter what color skin we have, what sexual preferences, what religion we belong to, or whatever. We all laugh, love, and bleed in the same way. This is powerful to know because we can now imagine what it must be like to be in the shoes of another person. When I was working, for example, in the sexual assault and child abuse unit, my job was to talk to a victim of a sexual assault, a young girl, a woman, a boy, whatever. I was one of the first people that they would see after this traumatic experience, life-altering experience. So if I walked into that room, my job is to get not a confession from you, but your story from you so I can catch the bad guy. If my approach was wrong, they would shut down immediately. So what I had to do is say, I imagine myself in your shoes. I wouldn't say this out loud, but in my mind, what would I like this police officer to say to me? Or how would I like him to approach me? What kind of approach would I be open to? So I imagined that, thinking we are more similar than we are different. If I were sitting in that chair, the victim, I wouldn't want a cop coming on and getting into my face with a piece of paper and a pen out, trying to take my statement from me. I would want somebody compassionate, maybe even quiet, maybe sitting in silence, which I used to do, and just sit there and just say, whenever you're ready, I'm here to help. Those words, I'm here to help, are so powerful. Try it with a family member. Try it in a negotiation. Try it anywhere. I'm here to help. I'm here to understand. Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And it's so true. So that's the first lesson. We are more similar than we are different. The second lesson is you get what you give. If I get on your podcast and I give you the finger, Michael, and I call you names, you're going to shut me down, or you're going to just give me the same thing in return, right? You're going to say, no, I don't want you here. But if I give you dignity and respect out on the street, if I give you passion and understanding, I'm likely to get that in return. And this is why it's so important for us to be aware of what it is that we say, what it is that we do, and how we approach people, remembering that they are more similar than we are. They have their crosses to carry. Most people have burdens we don't know. And if we treat them with the dignity and respect that we would like to receive in return, we're likely to get it. And I know I did. A terrorist saved my life because of the way that I had treated him in the Middle East. He saved my life. I was about to be killed. I've had criminals come to my defense when I was being beaten because of ways that I had treated them in the past. And this has been my experience, is that you will get back what it is that you give to others. It's like giving a Christmas card, you're likely to get one back. Expressing a happy birthday, you're likely, because this is the way that we were conditioned since we lived in little huts, from the beginning of time. I work with you so that I can be part of your community, your tribe, and you work with me. So this is a great exchange. And if I go against the tribe, if I go against you, I may possibly lose my position in the tribe and be outcasted. And then I have to face the world, the saber-toothed tigers, whatever they may be to you. So those are really valuable lessons. I hope that everyone listening to this podcast can immediately begin to use in their lives. And boy, does it ever make a difference.
Yeah, if you remember anything from this show, definitely remember these two stories that Paul has shared with us because it will make your life better and it'll make the lives around you better. And before I forget, and thank you to be on the show, if you were playing drums in my house at 3 a.m., I would just yell "Freebird" from the bedroom. So we'd be good. Okay. So well, I love this conversation, Paul. Where can people find out more about you and this amazing work?
Uh, if you just run my name on the internet or through AI, you're going to find out a lot. If you are moved by anything that I said, this is the book, The Hostage Effect. And I would like to hear what you thought of it. Is this the kind of book that you would recommend to people to take off the shelf and go back to time and time again? It's not just a book. It's a blueprint, and it's also a call to action, and it's also a call to awareness. How did you feel about the book, reading it? Your honest opinion.
It was a game changer type of book, and it's definitely one of those books. There's a few that I have that I read from time to time again, and one example is like if you have a favorite song that you've listened to for decades, and you listen to it now that you're a little bit older, you hear the lyrics. The lyrics have not changed, but how they impact you does. And
Yes.
I think your book does that. I know that when I read it again, it'll touch me a little bit differently because it captures what's going on in your life at that moment and gives you that renewed awareness and hope and authority and quite frankly permission to take back control of your life because it's your life to control. So, Paul, I've loved this conversation. Great to finally connect. And thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on. And goodbye, everybody. And be safe out there.